Hi, I'm calling to express my support for the Ukraine funding and for the border bill. It's stalled and fierce, and I would like the speaker to bring it before the vote because it's going to pass. And not doing it is immoral and you too. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. You guys able to hear that? You guys able to hear the call? Chat room, my loves, my people. Hit that like, kids. Biden, it's what's for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I got to tell you, oh boy. We'll get in there in a minute.
You to go talk about Jewish space lasers, and really, why don't you fuck off? How about that?
Thanks. Thank you very much. Thank you, Marjorie. Thank you so much.
Oh, that's why.
The news agents in from London. What do you think the message should be to Nikki Haley tonight?
All right, hold on one second. We're bringing it forward. Give me 1 second. And we're rolling. Yes, we are. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. How's it going? Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. For those of you that have been with us for a very, very long time, predating the live stream and even my own radio show, you'll recall that I started my trip down the road to radio, which, by the way, in high school, before I even started acting, one of the things they had available in forensics, which was competition acting and drama before we all got true crimed out, was you could do scene work, you could do original comedy, which is what I ultimately excelled at. You're welcome very much. But there was a category which was basically radio, where you would sit there and you would have to read like a news break and weather and that kind of stuff, and you had to do it in a certain amount of time with a certain amount of character, and your voice had to be clear and your diction had to be perfect and all that stuff. And I did that first because the acting, the head of the theater department at New Trier basically said I had a face for radio and thought I had no business acting. I've encountered those kind of roadblocks my entire career. But I did start out in the radio program, and I did compete for the very first time in the competition acting and drama thing that they had, forensics, when I was in school in radio first. And they sat you in a little booth. Texas Paul, love your show. Oh, that's awesome. And we want to have Texas Paul on as soon as possible. So we will arrange that maybe Friday morning. Maybe we'll have him back on or radio Saturday. He could be our guest for the half of the first hour, the second half of the first hour, because I got to have time to set the stories up and all that kind of stuff. But I would love to have him on. I adore him. It was lovely to meet him in person. It was great to hug the man. I got to say, between Boston Brian and Texas Paul, I just need a Portland Paul or a fucking Seattle. Well, we've got Seattle Susie Q, and I've met her. But but as far as internet liberal branded folks like myself, it's nice to have one attached to every city. I do reserve the right to be the Chicago person, even though I don't know what you'd have to be like Chicago Charlie or something. I don't know how that would work out. Illinois Ida, that'd be terrible. Anyways, point being, yeah, Portland Tara doesn't quite work. She just represents the earth. Tara. Which is, by the way, I love the fact that that Trump side story, that Trump is terrified of Tara Dublin, that Tara will rain down upon him, that he's tormented by it is, I think, a wonderful thing. Anyways, point being, so I did radio, all that stuff. So if you'll recall, the way I ended up doing Hump Days with Hal on the Stephanie Miller show was essentially that I called in. There is no promotion in Los Angeles. If you have a show in LA, you're screwed. Some big bands can possibly call into like KLOS if they're performing at the Forum or some shit. But anybody who's got like a regular stand-up show or any of that stuff in the city, forget it. Like you're never gonna. I mean, it would be a forever competition between everybody trying to get some attention to their goddamn show, right? Magoo, no more Nikki. Oh, well, we'll get there. So, in that, in that world, oddly enough, there's so much media in LA and yet none if you have a live show. Okay. And it's very aggravating. At one point, though, Steph, because she had her show on at the progressive station that was in LA, I was like, I actually talked to my manager and my PR person at the time. I was like, maybe I listen to Steph and she knows who I am, obviously. Maybe I could call in and promote my show through her show or whatever. Get me on the air and I could tell them about my upcoming stand-up show. I believe it was, I think it was like at Largo or some shit like that. Anyways, a long time ago. And I go on the air. We managed to do it. Yeah, Stephanie Miller actually, they agreed to it. It wasn't on KTLK. Yes, it was. You're right. It was KTLK. It wasn't KPFK. It was KTLK. And so I call in and I'm on hold. And she fucking forgets I'm there. Essentially just keeps chit-chatting with whoever the hell is, people calling in and amongst herself and her mooks and all that shit. Just forgets I'm on hold or that I'm on hold for a particular reason. I think I'm just down in the list of anybody rando who's calling in and she'll get to me when she gets to me, right? And so I'm just kind of like sitting there in fucking stasis, right? Wondering if she'll ever get around to picking up my fucking phone so I can promote my show. Because I need to, it's just fucking impossible. And you guys know I'm terrible at promotion anyways. Face to face, I'll tell you how great I am. But to pitch a show or tell you when I've got a show or to it's just, I don't know. Anyways, it's why it's good to have a publicist, honestly. But, so I'm waiting on hold. And everybody's talking about the Affordable Care Act. This is when the Affordable Care Act was happening. And during the Affordable Care Act debate, if some of you may recall, I read the fucking thing. I read the whole thing. And you know why I read it? You know why I read the Affordable Care Act? Because everybody was saying nobody has read it. And I was like, well, tell you what, I'll do it. How about that? Then I can at least put a fucking pin in that stupid balloon that nobody has read it. I read it. Read the whole thing. Now, it took me about a weekend. It was about 4 days to get through the whole thing. There's a lot of repeating parts. There's a lot of references to other shit in it, right? Okay. But I got through the whole thing. And I'm on hold and people are calling in and calling it socialism and calling it communism and blah, blah. And then people on the left saying it doesn't do anything and it's a giveaway to the... And I can tell by how everybody's talking about it that they've gotten what they know about it from people who haven't read it either. They haven't read it, and the person that gave them that they're repeating the talking point from has not read the fucking thing. So by the time she finally remembers that I'm there, and I thank you, Chris Lavoie, for finally going, oh shit, basically, and going, how Sparks is calling in. He's on the thing, and they bring me in for my little segment. During that. During that piece, I was like, before I start pitching my show, can I just say nobody knows what the hell they're talking about the Affordable Care Act? It's not what this person said. It's not what and I started basically going back and forth over what was in the Affordable Care Act. And we got to the end of the break when the commercial was coming up and she was like, thanks for calling in. We love you, Hal. Maybe come back some other time. Click. And I never promoted the show. I never got to say, oh, you have a show on Friday. It just went away. And I didn't get to call back in the next day or let her go, hey, can you guys remind people that just fucking evaporated. But the good part was that became, that was on a Wednesday, and that became Hump Days with Hal. I started calling in on the regular, sometimes going into the studio, and then I would fill in for Steph and that kind of stuff. That's how that all started. And it was, at that time, I was doing my Ustream show. I'm an elder of the internet streaming world. And I was doing my Ustream show on the weekends when I wasn't shooting. And it's true. And on Saturday, I would do it on Saturday mornings. And at one point, WCPT calls and they're like, hey, would you be interested in doing a 5-day-a-week show? And I'm like, no, because I'm an actor and a comedian and I have a lot of other shit to do. And I know from just listening to Steph bitch about getting up at that hour that I would have no other life and no other ability to do anything. So thank you very much, but no. However, Saturday mornings, I'm doing this Ustream thing. Maybe we just turn that into a radio show and I just stop swearing for a couple of hours and we could just put that on, right? And that became the CPT show. That became Hal Sparks' radio program, Megaworldwide. And at that point, and the name of it was an accident. I don't know if you know this. And by the way, hi chat room. Let me bring in the chat room for this one so I can see you guys. So, g'day, how are you? Fair dinkum. So, Saturday mornings are for cereal and cartoons. I agree. All right. What does it mean to be a 21st century Republican? I don't know. I mean, I don't know that they don't believe in the Republic anymore. So I don't know how they call themselves Republican. That's another thing. So, yes, Hal's history with Hal. Nothing. Believe me, history starts with an H, and so does Hal for a reason. Anyways, so long story short, I was just going to, in kind of a grunge era leftover, like the elf hair. Thank you. I'm a big fan as well of the Legolas do. Yes, it's party in the back, witchcraft in front. I don't know. Anyways, so that show became a regular part of our lives, and then the Stephanie Miller. I started bringing up the point that maybe we should do a live tour because John Fugelsang does stand up and I do stand up, and Steph used to be a stand up was the idea, and maybe we make that happen. And voila, Sexy Liberal Comedy Tour is born. And on our own, just bootstrapping it, it was the #1 tour of 2011 and then into 2012. And you're welcome. And if you'll remember, 2011 into 2012 was a crucial election year. Legolas or Ozzy. That's true. I'm a big fan of when Ozzy wears this do as well. Which, by the way, next Tuesday, Ultimate Jam Night, I'm doing all duets because we're celebrating women. So I'm singing with another singer on all the songs I'm doing, and it's like women who sing with us at the jam. And one of the songs I'm doing is "Close My Eyes Forever," the Ozzy Lita Ford song. So there you go. Cool. Anyways, so here we are again. It's an election year, a crucial fucking election year. And Sexy Liberal is back out on tour. And all of that germinated out of the fact, the irony that Sexy Liberal is back out with these dates. And tickets go on sale Friday at sexyliberal.com. But also, if you have the promo code KEY, K-E-Y, I don't know why, but K-E-Y, because we like you, KEY, you can buy tickets starting tomorrow. You can get early tickets. Yeah? Okay. So this tour, I have to say, germinated out of the fact that Stephanie Miller kept me on hold for fucking ever and didn't let me promote that gig. That one shit gig in Los Angeles where I was trying to do stand-up. I need Hal to come to New York. We're coming to New York. Also, I'll just have you know, I gave Caleb, our guitar player in Nerd Halen, all the dates for Sexy Liberal. And thank you, Andrea, for putting that in the chat. Yeah, the pre-sale tickets go on sale tomorrow at sexyliberal.com. Use the promo code KEY. You can buy an early ticket. That I'm going to try, as best I can, to book us a Nerd Halen gig the night before. Also, pay-per-view tickets, there will be on some of the shows. Not all of them, because it's venue-specific and there's a bunch of other shit. But in a couple of places, and I believe specifically the Chicago one might be for sure at the Vic, because it's not a Live Nation event. It's one of the few. That show we are going to live stream for sure. I don't know what the rules are and the rest of it. I'm trying to work that out with Ron and all them throughout. I personally, if I had my druthers, fuck, I'd say live stream them all because it's the material changes every show. It's one of the few comedy tours where it's like new material every weekend. So because we have to. Jesus Christ. It used to be you used to be able to ride fucking, Reagan jokes where somebody go, well, for like years. Jesus Christ. Like some of the jokes about Carter, people are still doing them. But when it comes to Trump, he prints new bullshit on the regular. So, and his followers and other people, the Ted Cruzes, the Lindsey Grahams of the world, the fucking Alabama Supreme Court, Brett Kavanaugh, they all, amongst all those people, they're just, it's amazing as a political comedian in this environment that it is much more akin to like improv straight from a suggestion because it's so like down to the minute. There's some things obviously I can craft, and obviously I'm doing things like Florida Man, which I'm adding an AV element to. That's all I'm gonna say. I bought myself a device so that I can bring an AV element to my show. That's all I'm saying. Which should make it. I'm going to build this set out as much as I can structurally so that within it I can put new jokes all the time, but that there's a consistent like frame to it so that I'm not running the light on my fellow comedians, which is no bueno, and that I know I'm delivering a big fucking kapow show every time. Yes, I will be bringing this. It's this device, yeah. Yeah, I'm a grown man. And why would you write jokes when all you need is I done messed up my pants. So yeah. It's like, yes, it's a high-tech device. 1 second. Yes, bring it up from the bat cave. I'll show people it later. Maybe. I don't know. So, I'm just saying, I just consider that a teaser. Yeah, it's a PowerPoint. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do I'm gonna roll out a couple of fucking chalkboards, like some dipshit doing a Carrot Top meets Glenn Beck. That's what we need in the world of fucking comedy. I just bought an 8x8 LCD monitor from AliExpress for $19. Yes, I have a use for it. Well, as a monitor for a video camera, that's very functional. And by the way, everything's on a fire sale, and they're not making any money on any of their sales. So knock yourself the fuck out, I guess. There's a... let's go to... Yeah. The big story, I suppose, is the Never Trump vote. And that is, here you go. Nikki Haley has suspended her campaign, and she is not endorsing Trump. Let me pull this in here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'll bring this up, and we'll go straight to the comms on this so you guys can see it. There she is, ladies and gentlemen. Nikki Haley she won Vermont. Now, can I just say, before she even gets started, that Biden lost American Samoa, all 13 votes or whatever, to some tech billionaire who's clearly to the right of Biden, whatever. So I don't know how the people who are anti-Biden are uncommitted or somehow dunking on it, and you're like, dude, that's like Dean Phillips winning, get the fuck out of here. But anyways, the fact that he lost that, everybody's like, oh, not American Samoa. Oh dear. Oh dear. Right? Whatever. 11 votes. Yeah. But she wins Vermont, and it's like, Trump dominated this shit out of here. Okay, here we go. This is her.
I have always been a conservative Republican and always supported the Republican nominee.
However, in this case, I do not believe he is a Republican or a conservative. He's a pussy-grabbing scumbag, second-generation rich kid who thinks the fucking sun shines out of his ass and spray paints his dumb fucking face orange every time he goes on camera and can't shut the fuck up about an election he lost fair and square. Anyways, I'm sorry. What was I saying?
But on this question, as she did on so many others, Margaret Thatcher provided some good advice when she said, quote, "Never just follow the crowd. Always make up your own mind." It is now up to Donald Trump to earn the votes of those in our party and beyond it who did not support him. And I hope he does that. At its best, politics is about bringing people into your cause, not turning them away.
Well, yeah, that's what a rhino would say, okay? So.
And our conservative cause badly needs more people.
Mm-hmm. You mean because 35% of them are not going to vote for Trump, no matter what? That half of your voters are giving him the fucking finger. They weren't voting for you. They were voting to give him the fucking finger. And by the way, all the Biden voters, all the people who actually give a shit about democracy, all the people who actually give a shit about women's rights, all the people who actually give a shit about functioning governance, that don't want to white knuckle our fucking government every goddamn morning, wake up and see what kind of asshole bullshit decision has the psycho in the Oval Office made this morning that's going to wreck my fucking world. You know, all those people who actually care about this country are going to vote for Biden as not only as a way of supporting the fact that he's getting shit done that you want done and you want to move that ball further down the field, and this is how you do it, but also to go, I'm soundly in the mandate region of what we want to accomplish as Democrats. I'm, of course, not talking to the uncommitted. Mm-hmm.
This is now his time for choosing.
Did you hear what he said about Israel this morning? Uncommitted? You gotta finish the problem. That was the direct quote. You got to finish the problem. Just bounce those fucked up words around in your head for a little while. You've got to finish the problem.
I have always been a conservative Republican and always supported the Republican.
Okay, it was on a loop. Sorry. That was so it went back to the beginning. So she's not going to vote. Yeah, she's not going to vote for that motherfucker. It's not going to happen. And half or more of her voters are not going to vote for him either. So, you done, son. Honestly, the Republicans' only chance at winning the White House this time around is running somebody else. And they're not going to do it. What does that mean? It means kill all the Palestinians is what it means. It means wipe them all out. They're all terrorists. Look, you think he's going to talk about, he's going to be able to define the difference between Hamas and regular run-of-the-mill Palestinians if he thinks every fucking Mexican woman with a toddler on her hip is a fucking terrorist? Really? You think he's going to make a measured decision about shit like Gaza? Donald Trump is going to go, all right, I think there's a lot of gray area in what we're working with, but I think there's some distinct areas we can agree on. Get out of here. You actually think that shit? You think he'd ever drop fucking aid to the Palestinians in Gaza during this stuff? Yeah, if Biden loses, Gaza is done. And the West Bank. Believe me, the United States under Trump will strike a deal with Israel and Jordan to squash the fucking place and hand half to each. Yeah. Yeah, the pro-Gaza people have no idea. Well, I think they do. I just think ultimately they're like in the Susan Sarandon camp, which is just, like, let it all... hopefully Trump will bring about the inevitable demise of the United States sooner. That's that kind of bullshit. That's what Dore believes, that's what she believes, and that's what those folks believe. When you really pin them down, and by the way, they live here. They live in the United States. They're not gonna move anywhere else ever. They don't even recognize what a privilege it is to be able to bitch about your government so randomly and be so blazingly full of shit about it and have zero consequences. You're not going to jail, and if you get kicked off, you won't even get kicked. Shit, you'll get boosted in the algorithm on X. Good Lord. Oh, by the way, Marjorie Taylor Greene F-bombed a British reporter this
Space
morning.
lasers, and really, why don't you fuck off? How about
There you go. This is where she's being asked about this question. This is why don't you talk about Jewish space lasers?
you go talk about Jewish space lasers, and really, why don't you fuck off? How about that?
Thanks. Thank you very much. Marjorie, thank you so much. The news agents in from London. What do you think the message should be to Nikki Haley tonight?
Well, we've been encouraging her to drop out and support President Trump, and I think tonight is the clear message that President Trump is the clear front runner.
Hey, nutcase. Donald Trump won 98% of the Republican vote in 2020. And now he has at least 35% of Republicans who will never vote for him again. Ever. Now, obviously, you have a balancing issue in this situation where Nikki Haley, as a woman with brown skin, she is going to lose 35% of the Republican Party as well. For a totally different reason, although they may be aligned, right? Let's just be abundantly clear. However, if you motherfuckers ran John Kasich, you'd fucking win. That's the weird part. You don't deserve to, and I wouldn't vote for John Kasich either, and I think it would be a mistake. But I guarantee you teed that shit up, considering the headwinds and how fickle a lot of independent voters are. You could walk that motherfucker in. And DeSantis isn't going to jump back in at the last second because MAGA wants to string him up. You fucked up the one dopey white dude that you could have run. You curb stomped him in the name of Donald Trump. So he's not coming back. Don't tell the MAGA she's got non-white skin. All right, well, believe me, they know. Again, she didn't even have to have non-white skin. It's the she part that's the problem to start with. Because again, when Sarah Palin, one of the reasons why McCain lost was because Sarah Palin in the Republican Party had a 70% likability rating and a 20% electability rating. 50% of the motherfuckers who liked her thought women should not be in charge. House, maybe a senator, whatever. Maybe we put him on the Supreme Court. But a president making the final decision, you can't let a woman do it. That's what they believe. And they're not going to change in the next 3 fucking decades. However, I will say congratulations to Nikki Haley being the first woman to win a Republican primary anywhere when she won D.C., and she's won a second one with Vermont. So, cool.
He's the winner in our Republican primary, and it's time for Nikki Haley to drop out and support him.
Do you think President Trump, Mr. Trump, is closer to picking his VP, and should you be on that list?
Oh, that's the question everyone asks. And no, I don't think Nikki Haley should be on the list. But of course, President Trump will choose who he wants for VP.
Uh-huh. You mean like he did with Pence? Based on what? I'm dead serious. We've seen presidents who, were hesitant about who to pick or let the party do it or tried to do a coalition gathering, or even I think something that's what was really impressive was Biden bringing in Kamala Harris specifically because of the big tension about the racism issue that came up during that, and everybody's like, "Oh fuck, man, write her off. She's done. She would have been a great running mate, but there's no way he takes her in now." And then he did exactly that, just showing how you can build a bridge and find understanding, even if there was previously none there. Like, just adult shit, just adulting like fucking adults. Meanwhile, yeah, Trump doesn't think he needs a VP at all. That's right, Audrey, in the chat room. He doesn't think he needs one. And Xi Jinping has just got rid of stop Li Qiang, the like his financial minister, from giving the big speech about how the economy's doing, or are doing a press conference about it for the first time in since the 90s. Since they've been doing it. Basically, they've done it every year after the party congress. He's been coming out and answering questions to the foreign press about how the economy's doing and what their plans are for the year. They stopped that this year, and part of the reason is because they got no. It's all fucking bad news. But the other reason is because Xi Jinping is basically getting rid of anybody who could be, next in line. He's kind of eliminating anybody who's second tier to him, so that it's just him and a third tier. There's no bridge between the two. Trump thinks the same shit. Yeah. He can have an acting vice POTUS. Yeah, Jesus. No, you can't. You have to nominate somebody. Like, the only reason he's going to do it is because he has to do it. And it'll be like, I think he fears his own mortality so much that it'll be very difficult for him to pick somebody that's like young and vibrant in any way. Like, honest to God, he'll be one of the first fucking people to pick somebody who's almost his age. I know it's in the Constitution. He has to. Exactly. But the weird part is that he doesn't want it. Yeah.
Would you like to be on that list?
He's got a long list. I support President Trump in any way he'd ask me. But I can assure you it won't be Nikki Haley.
And can you tell me why so many people that support Donald Trump love conspiracy theories, including yourself? He seems to attract lots of conspiracy theorists.
Well, let me tell you, you're a conspiracy theorist, and the left and the media spreads more conspiracy theories. We like the truth. We like supporting our Constitution, our freedoms, and America first. So,
what about Jewish space lasers? Tell us about Jewish space lasers.
No, why don't you go talk about Jewish space lasers? And really, why don't you fuck off? How about that?
Thanks. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I like the fact that she kind of roped her in there a little bit. She tee her up with some normal questions, and then drop the hammer. I guess that's. I mean, the British tabloid press are a bunch of dicks a lot of the time, anyways. So they're used to doing that. But and I have to be honest, I can't think of a way that she can actually answer that question with any kind of dignity or intelligence because of her fragile ego and her attitude and all that shit. Tim is asking Steph and Frangela Duo, where do we type in the keyword? In the link that will be up tomorrow for Sexy Liberal to buy tickets, there will be a promo code area in the checkout part, and that's where you put key. That's where it will, or I guess where you sign into it. It's a good question, though. I'll clarify that with Chris so that we can talk about it tomorrow as well. Yeah. Anyways, by the way, hit the like and let people know we're here. That really helps immensely. We got a bunch of people in here already. The chat room is full. I mean, it's incredible.
Even outside, it's packed.
Yeah, everybody's here, including me. And so, I mean, it's crowded. I'm just saying, I'm feeling a little, I need some elbow room in here because it's. I think Kimberly will be his best. Guilfoyle? Everybody thinks it's going to be Kristi Noem. As a, it's kind of like a smarter version of Sarah Palin is the idea. Barely. That would be the theory. Right? So, yeah. Noem's a possibility. The problem is, and because he's got to win back women. So the idea is that if he puts in a woman, that'll help him win back some of the women who are concerned about this. The problem is that A, once he brings a woman on, he's going to be fucking gross about it at some point. He won't be able to stop himself. Like he'll blather some bullshit at one point.
He can do things with his tongue you wouldn't believe it.
And and turn everybody off. And if he brings a woman on as his VP, for real, if he brings on a woman as his VP, it's going to have to be a woman who is more pro-life than he is. She'll still have to pass the Pence test. She's still going to have to be, religiously to the, in terms of her Christianity, to the right of him. She's going to have to, which will, I mean, women aren't stupid. They're not going to go, okay, she's got ovaries. She's on my team. It's just fucking silly. Did you participate in your democracy yesterday? Yes, I did. It will not be Marge or Nancy Mace. No way. It's not going to be Elise Stefanik. There's no friggin' way. He doesn't think they're telegenic enough. He thinks that he doesn't believe they're attractive enough for it. For one, that'll be he'll pick somebody. I mean, they were even joking about doing an apprentice-like show about the new leaders of the Republican Party after he was voted out and he wasn't going to run again because he was so embarrassed during that window. And then he decided to run basically because he was going to get indicted and this is his only protection. In the same way that he was sort of like running for president the first time to protect himself against all the bankruptcies that were headed his way. That he could put the shit off. Jesus Christ. You could argue, thoughts on Tulsi? I don't see, Tulsi's not going to happen either. Anybody, here's the issue. Maggots, no matter how much they like these people, no matter how much they like Tulsi Gabbard or somebody like that, they're still going to have this like secret Democrat fear that they're going to, that anything he does that tries to bring in, across the aisle voters or any of that kind of stuff will be a fucking mole. That's what they'll view her as, that she's going to be a mole. Carrie Lake is a possibility, but again, she turns off so many people and she lost. And she wouldn't be able to run in the senatorial campaign at the same time, right? So, yeah, it's not going to be Stefanik. Tulsi isn't wide enough. That's another issue, too, with her, with his supporters, with the maggots. It's not going to be Tim Scott. It won't be. Yeah, just like he needs a sycophant. That's his problem. He needs somebody who, looks at him the way Pence did. Noam is one of the only possibilities where, everybody will see him as doing, trying to do some sort of outreach. But she's going to have to run to the right of him on abortion. So it's not going to help. It isn't. There's no fucking way. A football coach? Yeah, Tuberville or something. Mike Johnson. It won't be Mike Johnson. It won't be anybody who wants to be president themselves. I honestly, he's going to be too nervous that they're waiting for him to die. It won't be Ramaswamy. Again, there is just no way fucking your average Republican is going to vote for a non-white candidate. He'll lose more votes than he gains. He might pick up some independents by doing it, but he'll lose 20% of, at his age especially. If he was younger, he could bring on somebody who was like a black candidate or something like that, or Ramaswamy or something like that. If Trump was in his, 60s, he could do it because they wouldn't be worried about if he keels over, that person's going to take over. But, he's a fucking mess. So they're absolutely worried. Joel Osteen, yeah, right. I'm gonna be his VP. I'm gonna think of me with Pence as Pence with better hair. Yes. Know deep in your heart that I'm here to help everyone with the Lord's tax cut. That's what I will bring. Yeah. A lot of the a lot of this, like the response to his speech last night was fucking, it was lame. We'll cover it today. We'll go through the speech this afternoon. because I have not watched it. I want to watch the whole thing. I've heard people talking about it, but I want to go through the whole thing during the afternoon show because I know if I get into it, I mean, honestly, Ivanka could be really. It's not going to be Ivanka. Like honestly, I'm sure he'll think about it, but there's no fucking way. There is no fucking way. If you think he lost voters to Nikki Haley, if he appoints one of his kids, fuck that. Like I mean, it's a joke. It becomes a joke immediately. I'm serious. Has he not trust anyone like Hannity or bring back Ivanka? Well, that's the thing too. Is like it's not gonna be Tucker because he views Tucker as a climber. Yeah. And by the way, for our uncommitted friends, Trump backs Israel's war in Gaza, completely, without reservation. You know all the like Kamala Harris calling for a ceasefire and getting the hostages out and all that kind of stuff. Like Trump would have like viewed the American hostages that are there as like you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. Nuke this area, like just you know what? Don't nuke it. Napalm it, and then build new hotels there. Turn it into the Israeli Riviera. That would be his conversations. He was on it was on Fox News. He was talking to Kilmeade, I think, right? Because that was the quote. You've got to finish the problem. That's who you want in charge, uncommitted. Not the guy who's dropping aid to Palestinians. Not the guy who balanced support for the Iron Dome with medical and food aid for Palestinians in the first fucking place. Who tried to like allow the Houthis a chance to not be viewed as terrorists when he first came in. Who gave them the rope by which they hung themselves. You're not going to vote for that guy. You're going to vote for you've got to finish the problem, dude. Really? Because and by the way, if you don't vote for Biden, you're voting for that. That's like the food aid that Biden dropped, the negotiations they've done with Israel to try and minimize civilian deaths and all that kind of shit. All that you're not unless you're voting for Biden, you're not voting for that. You're voting for letting Trump do whatever the fuck he wants. Yeah, Trump met with Musk over the weekend. I think it was to borrow the money. I think like one of the big stories will be like is under the table will Trump loan borrow the money from Musk to pay his debts temporarily. Yeah. You've got to finish the problem. Yeah. Yeah. And raw story, bless your heart. Israel's retaliatory offensive in the Gaza Strip has killed 30,534 people, mostly women and children, according to the health ministry in the Hamas-ruled territory. Okay, according to the health ministry, the Gazan health ministry that is run by Hamas, there have been no militant deaths. That anybody holding a rocket launcher or firing mortars or whatever is just a civilian and probably a kid. According to them, there have been none. They don't cop to any militant deaths. No Hamas fighters have died, according to them. Zero. Every single one of those deaths is a civilian child. Which, by the way, if you're getting warned that catastrophic attacks are coming and you don't clear them out, then that's what human shields are. That's what a human shield is. Secondly, 30,000. This is their number, 30,534. Israel has dropped 45,000 bombs on Gaza. 45,000 bombs, and that's not including tank fire and gunfire. Again, that's not my number. That's their number. But you know what? doesn't even matter. If it was, if you ask this dude, they all got to go. No mitigatory anything. They're all terrorists. They got to go, according to him. You got to finish the problem. I don't even know what I mean, here's the thing. I know what he's accidentally saying. I know he can't get the normal version of that sentence out of his fucking face. But it's one of those situations where he actually said the thing out loud. That's this motherfucker. It considers the Gazans the problem. Just for the record. Yeah. And you have to understand, like, this isn't him just talking to somebody or like misspeaking because he's got a diverse cabinet of people around him and they were talking about a bunch of issues. And so he jumbled some words together and said the wrong thing because they were having, a tactical and theoretical and philosophical discussion about the best path forward. Wasn't that? He's surrounded by fucking people like Stephen Miller and Jason Miller and fucking Corey Lewandowski and Steve Bannon. And you think any of those motherfuckers are going, what about the children? You think a single one of those motherfuckers is saying that to him? And if they are, what do you think his response is? You've got to finish the problem. Yeah, Kash Patel, another one, yeah. Good Lord. That phrase in and of itself is fucking grotesque. By the way, our dear friend Philip Ittner will be joining us in a wee bit. Okay, hold on one second. I've got to ding, ding, ding. Open up my window for when he arrives because that's how we go. And meanwhile, hit that like if you would. By the way, we're on Instagram as well. Hi, Instagram people. I can't see you in the chat. I'm sorry. It doesn't come up in my chat. I don't know why. It should, but it doesn't. It's evil. Why it won't do that, I don't know. Yeah. And then there we go. Open that up. Enabling this. Turn on my virtual camera so whoever shows up will see me here, and it's fabulous. And there we're good. Okay, good. So Phil will be joining us in a little bit. Yeah. Hi. Hello, Arizona Sunflowers. Hello. Who's doing Pacino? Oh, Patel. If Jared falls down some stairs, can Trump get Ivanka to give him all his money? No, because that $3 billion isn't his. It's not it's an investment, portfolio that has to be run well to make a profit, and Trump has no fucking idea. Yeah. Zelensky can't die. It'll be madness if Zelensky gets killed. It certainly would be a big deal, but it wouldn't end the country or the fight. Thanks, Wes Bragg. I try. Elon will own Trump. Well, that's the thing. Like that's expensive money. Very, very, very expensive money. Trump, Putin, 2024. Why not? Yeah, he's not a U.S. citizen, so he can't be second in line for the presidency. That's an interesting question. So you don't have to be a naturalized citizen, or natural-born citizen to be a senator. But if they make you the majority leader, and you don't have to be a naturalized citizen, a natural-born citizen to be in the House. And if they made you the speaker and you weren't, would that disqualify you from being? Yeah, I think that you literally could never be speaker. Yeah. Is there a way to put Instagram into landscape mode? You're squished in portrait mode. I'm sorry. Yeah. No, there really isn't. Sorry. Thank you, Katie. It's just Instagram. That's just how it works. I wish I could turn it sideways, but people won't watch it that way. And when they scroll through, they'll go, "What the fuck is happening here?" And then they turn their phone sideways, and then the app turns. It's just you're forever chasing it. It's very strange. Yeah, I don't think you could be speaker because of that, right? How much dark money is stashed away for Barron? Fucking none. Is any white guy disqualified ever? Of course. Yeah. Yeah, if they're not born in the United States, they can't be speaker because they can't be president. Although, the question is, again, can they, it says you can't be elected. You can't run for president. You can't, the voters can't pick you. But you could be if the other two die, which it sounds like the plot of a fucking Clancy novel at this point. Right? Yeah. Yes, Cenk Uygur cannot run for president. He cannot be president. So if he runs for president, that's fraud. If anybody gives him money for his presidential campaign, he's committing fraud. He can't be president. Not a natural born citizen. Sorry. Run for governor. The only reason he ran for that House seat in California was to keep a Democratic woman out of office. Because that's what happened. He basically shaved off enough votes to hand that seat to a Republican. How's his campaign going? It's not technically it can't be a campaign. Cenk has gone to court over that. Yeah, he could try. It's in the Constitution. He's not going to win. Sorry. He's as ineligible as if you were 34 years old. Sorry. That's how the Constitution. And by the way, if you want to amend the Constitution for it, you're going to have to get the states to ratify it. That's the remedy. You can't sue to run. It's not going to work ever. I'm telling you. Ted Cruz, who was born in Canada. Yeah, that's he was born in Canada to American parents is the idea, or his mother was. So he's technically you don't have to be born on American soil as long as you're born to American parents. That's the John McCain thing. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to happen. It's just it's a PR stunt, not unlike, I would argue, Marianne's, hold on one second, Marianne's, campaign. It's a PR stunt. It was always a lie. It was always a joke. Other than that, I have no opinion. Let's see, Haley cedes Republican race to Trump, but does not endorse him. There we go. Haley plus vote. Yeah, so she won Vermont. There we go. What will Nikki Haley's voters do in November? Stay home or vote for Biden? And let's see. In a speech, Donald Trump conjured. This is the fucking his speech. Hold on. I need to open up my my stuff for Ukraine as well, since Phil's going to be joining us in just a minute. So we can talk about these things. Hold on. There we go. Yeah, he's in here. Okay, cool. I mean, it made the news. The Kiev Independent's even talking about it. Nikki Haley exits Republican presidential race, ceding nomination to Trump. They don't mention the fact that she did not endorse him, and she will leave it up to him to try and convince her voters to vote for him. I have no doubt that 20% of them, 50% of her voters, a little less than maybe 40% of her voters will vote for him. The 20% that he could regain, but at least a third of Republican voters are not going to vote for him this fall. That 1-to-1, the Republicans always have an issue 1-to-1 against the number of Democratic voters and the number of Republican voters, period. They just do. That's why they rely on the Senate and the Electoral College to hold what control they have. Because, again, Kristi Noem's state has fewer people in it than than the Valley outside of L.A. The whole state has fewer people in it than that. And yet they have 2 senators. So they can block all kinds of shit because they have 2 senators. and even the plot for the fake electors dealt with the fact that there were more states in Republican control than there were in Democratic control. So they could, if they had to vote by a number of House members state to state, they would win, even though they represent fewer people in the country. It would be tyranny of the minority in that regard, right? So everybody fucking knows this. But on the one-to-one, voter to voter, the Republicans have fewer voters than Democrats do. They simply do. And Democrats have a much bigger get out the vote machine than the Republicans do. As a matter of fact, thanks to Donald Trump, they have a fuck off the vote machine because he keeps telling everybody that it's rigged, and who the fuck wants to participate in a rigged election? If you believe his bullshit about the election being rigged, and Democrats were able to rig it when they weren't in power, what the fuck makes you think they wouldn't be able to do it easier with Biden in the White House? What the fuck are you talking about? Right? I mean, logically, if you believed his bullshit, it's worse now. It's absurd. So there's Phil in the background. I see him roaming around back there, and I think he can hear me. Can you hear me, sir?
Can.
Excellent. Okay, cool. I'm going to copy and bring you in here in just one moment. So the idea that Republicans are gonna that he has talked a bunch of these assholes out of voting, and the idea that he's gonna go, I was just kidding. You should vote, and you should trust voting, and you should trust the voting enough to not try to vote twice, for fuck's sake, right? Because that's the problem he had last time. Everybody who was arrested for voting twice was a Trump voter. Every single one. And the only guy who was arrested for murdering his wife and using her ballot was a Trump voter. I mean, that's the highest form of voter fraud I think you can do, is kill someone and take their ballot. That would, to me, I think that stacks. So let's go here real quick, and I'm going to bring in, and this in here in a second. Bring in, get in there. Click, you silly thing. Paste. Okay. And then I'll bring it in just a moment as soon as it comes in. And Phil is joining us live from Ukraine. There he is. I see him in the background. I'm going to bring him right on. Ladies and gentlemen, Philip Bittner joining us. How are you, sir? How you doing this fine day? Oh, hold on. I got to turn the speaker. There you go. There you are. Excellent.
There I am. Hello.
Yes.
I mean, I'm in a country that is suffering because of
because Mike Johnson's a scumbag, and Republicans don't give a shit
Johnson's
about
a
democracy
scumbag,
anymore.
and-
Yeah.
Nope. Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
But aside from that, just peachy.
Yeah. I will say that in spite of all this stuff that we keep hearing about, and I'm going to put in, I realize I don't have my little title things up here, so I'm going to bring those in a second. There he is. Look at that. Boom. I got you a big nameplate. I made your own
flag.
Yeah, look at that. See, I
got
added
a flag.
see,
I like
isn't that
it.
fancy? Yeah.
I like Fancy.
That's right. So, in
Fancy.
spite of all the talk about, the issues that Ukraine is running up against, the Europeans are stepping up, and the Biden administration is finding ways, multiple ways of like getting other material support to Ukraine in the midst of all this, and it seems to be working because the Ukrainians are shooting the shit out of the Russian airplanes. They just sank a boat.
Yeah.
Right?
Another boat.
Another boat,
And there's
right.
There's footage of it apparently
Yeah.
from the boat before it was struck. It was a
Right.
swarm of naval drones,
Mhm.
and they tried to defend themselves using AK-47s. I mean, this is a fact.
Right.
This is I don't know if it's a corvette or a frigate, or it's not a large capital ship, but it was a capital ship.
Yep.
And they're sitting there shooting at it with AK-47s. It's a brand new world. And somebody did bring up the point I saw that, the US better be watching this too, because, if you're in the Strait of Hormuz, and somebody has a swarm of drones like this, we might be vulnerable too. So I don't necessarily agree, because I've
Right.
seen like our Aegis system,
Yeah.
which is the Gatling gun that is used to defend from normally airborne attacks on our
Right.
ships. But I'm hoping, I
Hmm.
suspect, and if it wasn't prior, I'm sure it's going to be remodified so that those guns can fire on surface level incoming whatevers.
Right.
I don't think one again, that's another thing about what's happening in this war here, is that drone technology is being it's their first performance on the battlefield in any real significant way. I mean, you can argue Iraq and Afghanistan with Predators and Reapers, but this is a
Yeah, but
whole
those are
nother level.
almost airplanes. They're so big
Yeah,
and
exactly.
expensive too. Is the other aspect of it that
Yeah.
I think is kind of crucial to this. Is that we're talking about things that you know almost one to one are as expensive as the target they are seeking. You can send a
Yeah.
Reaper drone
They just don't have
that's
a pilot, so there's no body bag that's going
right,
to sit
which is
back, and
very
that's a
important.
big thing.
And again,
Yeah.
this is one of the things that I found very odd about the criticisms that came both of Obama and potentially of Hillary Clinton and certainly of Biden and others about the usage of drones. And I'm
Mm.
here to tell you, it doesn't matter who's in office. If they can use a drone to do a military action that's
Oh
necessary,
yeah.
they're going to use one because no drones come home in a flag draped coffin ever. And that is
I remember
principally the decision.
years ago,
Yeah.
yeah, years ago when I was Voice of America bureau chief for I worked for Voice of America for 1 year. I was their
Mhm.
bureau chief in Kabul in Islamabad,
Right.
and I had an interview with the then ambassador, U.S. ambassador to Pakistan, and I tried to get him to kind of admit to me that the most disturbing thing about drone warfare was that it isn't a human, and it's there is no repercussion, even if they were able to, one, that it's hovering high above you and there's nothing you can do about it, but
Mhm.
secondly, that even if you were able to shoot it down, it's a bottom line on some accountant, military, Pentagon
Right.
accountant's spreadsheet. There's no
Yeah.
body bag that goes back,
Yeah.
and for an enemy to know that they have no recourse, that they have no way, it is a psychologically debilitating thing, but it's the nature of warfare. It's and I'm not I would rather have a drone go down than an American soldier,
Soldier die. Right,
come back
absolutely. And I
in
also
a
think there's
flag
there
draped coffin.
when your enemy puts up beheading videos in those particular cases as a
Hmm.
weapon both to scare people against attacking them and also to show their power and all that kind of stuff, you deny them that as well. It's not just
Yeah,
putting someone in harm's way, but when they
which
are
I'm
in
fine
harm's
with.
way, right? Which that's what happens to them, which the level of sort of cruelty is
Yeah,
denied in
yeah.
that particular instance. So I'm looking up right now. I'm trying to find the footage of that drone thing. I think I'll be able to find it in just a
Kunnikov,
moment.
I think
But
Malcolm put it up.
and the
If you're on Twitter,
okay.
just
And
go
the
to
Kirsch,
Malcolm's account.
the Kirsch was hit again, insofar as I know.
Yeah.
Hmm.
There's some dispute about that,
Right,
about whether or not it was a strike or whether or not something else. They because the Russians have all these countermeasure things where they put up like smoke and they put up
right.
flares, and it could have been any number of things. But yeah, that bridge is living on borrowed time.
Hmm.
That's going to be taken down. There's no doubt in
Right.
my mind, but that thing is going to be taken. And again, I've spoken about this publicly before, but I also know for a fact that, well, I don't know for a fact, I know on good intelligence,
Yeah.
from a reliable source, that that bridge is falling into the sea anyhow. It may take 5 or 10 years, and we can't wait
Right.
that long.
Oh yeah, yeah. The
But
the silt that it's built on was bad in the first place.
yeah,
So yeah, it's one
yeah,
of those things where
yeah,
you have to
and
keep
the fact that it's a
rebuilding it.
kleptocracy. Yeah,
Right.
and it's a kleptocracy, so everybody was skimming off the top.
Right.
Um, that
Hmm.
bridge is going to come down, and if we know it, because my source is somebody in the military who referenced a SEAL team expedition down to the pylons.
Hmm.
uh if we know it, they know it, and that might be a great motivation for why they feel they need this land bridge.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
you're right. Despite the fact that we are letting them down enormously, and I'm sorry, I know that Biden is trying to get around it, and I know
Yeah.
that like Macron is stepping up, and all these things are happening, and
Yep.
but it's
Doesn't make it any less
and I know
frustrating
these things.
or
Doesn't make it
difficult.
any less
Right.
frustrating. It doesn't make it any more easy for me to look in the eyes of my Ukrainian colleagues, friends, and associates
Mm-hmm.
and say, no, we'll be there for you in the end. We will. I know we will,
Right.
because I do believe we will be there in the end. It's just
Right.
we have been infiltrated by Moscow. You know, the information warfare, the infiltration, the corruption by Russian intelligence in Western cities and
Right.
capitals is enormous. And it's bigger than I think any of us recognize. You know, in a public sphere.
Right.
Um, but I do believe ultimately, but still, it's hard to say when you're burying children in
Yeah.
Odessa. You know, when and even you know, and you know, you're telling these people that yeah, aid will come again. They will start to it will start to flow,
Yeah.
but every day there are guys who are losing, and make no mistake about it, they are losing ground.
Yeah.
They're holding on to certain sectors and they're doing, extraordinary work as the Ukrainian armed forces are wont to do because
Yep.
they have great motivation because they're trying to save and protect their own country, which is always a better motivator than an invader has, no matter
Yep.
how justified it is, or they try to justify it. They still know that they're invaders, and the Russian forces, they know that they're not welcome here, and
Or
I
that
mean, there
they're
was this.
not denazifying the fucking place or any of that
They're
stuff.
not denazifying the fucking place. And I mean, there was even a video recently I saw within the last 72 hours of a doctor, a Russian doctor, going, "Why do they keep shooting back at us? I mean, so many
Oh
Russian
God.
soldiers are getting hurt. Why are they firing back?" And it's like, because you're fucking invading,
Right.
asshole.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So there's all that.
Let me
But
show real
it does
quick if I
it does
could.
make it difficult. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, go for it.
So this is
Did you find the
if I
video of
may.
the
Yeah, I did. So
is
here,
this
hold on. Let me yeah.
this is a
Let
heck
me,
of a
hold on one
look
second.
at
Let
the
me
tracer fire that comes off this thing. It
Yeah,
is
these guys. Hold on one second.
incredible.
Let me straighten Phil up for a second. There you go.
No,
Uh,
you can oh, okay, well.
yeah, I fixed it. Don't worry. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
this is that shot. So this is look at these things coming at it, and they are just like it loops back around. They try to shoot it. It comes back
Uh-huh.
around, and like it's just S curving. It's almost like it's just making them
Look
empty
at
their
that
fucking
tracer
guns.
fire.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
nuts. And then
And why
it
are they
doesn't work.
firing with AK-47s?
Right. Why don't they
It's
have some
insane.
sort of countermeasure
Countermeasure,
that's
yeah.
equal to the threat? Right. And again,
Yeah.
this is to some degree is this new warfare? Sure. But it's not. I mean, they've been dealing with torpedoes forever. They've had directional torpedoes, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Forever. If we've had guided torpedoes since fucking what 1978 or some shit like that that can change direction and do a loop and come back around.
Ooh,
So
look at all that.
yeah, that's
Look at
yeah,
all that tracer fire.
yeah.
That's got to be
It's
terrifying for those
oh my
sailors.
god,
Not that I
yeah,
give a damn. Not that I give a damn. Screw them.
right.
But, you know, yeah,
And there were like six of
and they're
these
being
fucking
swarmed.
things. Yeah,
They're being swarmed. That's the problem.
which
These things are coming from all different directions.
mhm.
Fuck them.
And at this
Fuck them.
point, I
Another
mean,
coral reef.
watch. I would argue for the next stage of this is uh, some of these painted with like anti-radar paint, like 8 of them painted with anti-radar paint, and 2 of them painted dark blue so that they're visible to the naked eye. And then they just send those in and draw all the fire while the ones you can't see are striking the other side of the fucking boat. Like that's how it's going to work out because they're
Sure.
cheap and they can do it, and that's how it's going to end up. Like and I have to say, like this is there it goes. That's
Oof.
it. That's
Oh, there it goes. That's the hit. Yeah. Bye bye,
eh,
guys. Screw
yeah.
you.
No Navy,
Shouldn't have been there.
just hitting it with
No
fucking
Navy.
base. It's like
Incredible.
sea-doos. It's like sea-doos with bombs strapped to them.
Just incredible.
And everybody like
Just,
chat room,
I mean,
Eileen's going,
no,
Hal, shh.
no Navy.
Believe me, I'm not the only person who's thought of this. I will say that it won't matter. I could tell you that's what's going to happen, and it won't change a fucking thing of what's happening
Nope.
on the actual sea on the day. It's just not
And
gonna.
knowing Ukrainians the way I do, that this is just we're barely scratching the surface
Yep, this
of
is just the beginning.
what they're going. They're very inventive, and they have shown themselves to be. The fact that they are still surviving and have survived as long as they have. We're now into the third year of this war, and they're still they're
Right.
still
They were
holding
supposed to be
territory.
done in
There's all
6
this
days.
talk. There's
That's
all
what
this
Trump
talk
wanted.
of them advancing after there's all this talk of like after Avdiivka, them pushing west, and I've
Right.
seen all this like those who want to see a Russian success here, or want to see a Ukraine / NATO / Western failure here, going look at all this ground they're taking, and to which my response is they have not taken anything larger than 150,000 population center. Let them try and take and hold a city, a proper city of like 1 or
Yeah.
2 or 3 or 5 million people.
Not a village that had 30,000 people in it that all evacuated when the shit hit the fan
that
2
had
years
already
ago.
evacuated. Exactly. Let them try and march into Kharkiv. They'll find out what a steel town. Kharkiv is regarded as the steel town,
Right.
and it is.
It's like taking Pittsburgh.
It's a city of It's like it's steel and rebar, and those people are tough.
Mhm.
And that place is ready to go. Or Odessa, Odessa, where the other thing about this tragedy that we saw that could have been avoided if we had provided them with better anti-air defenses. This recent attack on this apartment building, where I think we now have 6 children who are being buried.
Yep.
I mean, the
Zelensky is in Odessa today.
And Zelensky was in Odessa today, and we can talk about that briefly. But let me just finish up my thought with this: is that if a Russian soldier, if I had any compassion for Russian soldiers, any Russian soldier that marches into Odessa is marching into a shitstorm. They are going to the place is a fortress, and they hate the Russians. Any kind attitude that they had towards Russia, because it was created by Catherine the Great. There's a long-standing history of Odessa being this major kind of Russian port city during the Soviet Union, and the bleeding of, is it Russian, is it Ukrainian? I can tell you categorically, there is no love for Russia there, and any love that had existed is gone completely. They fucking hate the Russians, hate them with a passion. Kind of happens when you bomb their apartment buildings and kill children and women and all the rest of it. So they're never going to take Odessa. They're never going to take Kharkiv. They don't have the capacity.
No,
they can't take it. Much
or
less
the will.
So, or the will.
Yeah.
So but as far you want to talk about the Zelensky visit today, because that was pretty striking. So I am shocked that this happened, frankly. The prime minister of Greece was in Ukraine, and instead of coming to Kiev, they decided to go down to Odessa, which is, I mean, more power to him, this Greek prime minister.
Yep.
But that's a risky thing to do, because Odessa is very much susceptible to attack. And apparently in the motorcade, while they were driving around, an air raid siren announced, and they couldn't get to a safe point for whatever reason quickly enough. Maybe because it was a large motorcade, maybe because they had their own security communications between Ukrainians and Greek security services. I don't know the reasoning why they couldn't get to, but apparently they couldn't get to a hard point, which is these safety, these invulnerable points is what they call them. And the Greek prime minister was very close to a strike. Think about, and he was with Zelensky. So, God forbid what could have happened if that motorcade had been hit directly. You would have had a dead, Greek prime minister.
Right.
You would have had, and Zelensky. Now, a lot's been spoken about, assassination attempts on Zelensky. What I don't think people in the West, and I actually also don't think people in Moscow understand, is Zelensky isn't the movement. Zelensky isn't the defense, is not It's not
That's
the
when they project
resistance
their
to you.
their their leadership
Yeah.
messiah complex onto other people.
Yes.
Right. It's why
Exactly
it's
right.
why it's why they think it's why the same people think there's an enthusiasm gap between Trump and Biden, because Biden voters don't put their faith in a man. We're putting our faith in democracy, and he represents the side that will bet is best suited to
Hmm.
support that or whatever. But it's not like if he dies, the sword goes back in the stone and we wander the desert for 40 fucking years,
Yeah.
gouging our fucking eyes out. But the
Yeah.
Trump supporters do believe that. They believe the land and the king are one and that he's
Yeah.
crucial,
Have I
right?
ever have I ever spoken to you about the Ukrainian poet Ivan Franko? He was a poet and a politician in the turn of the
Yeah, a little bit, not a
19th to
lot, but
20th century.
way back,
He's got
maybe a
a
year ago.
very famous poem called "The Stone Hewers" or "The Stone Cutters."
Hmm.
And he basically he writes, and this is 1910, 1920. He wrote this poem.
Hmm.
The idea is resistance to occupation by Moscow. He's writing this in 1910 before NATO even existed. And he says in the poem, if you die while you are striking at the stone with your axe, I will pick up the axe and I
Hmm.
will strike the stone and I will
Right,
continue. So it's the very same thing with Zelensky. And the idea that Ukraine would collapse
right.
because Zelensky was taken out of the equation just is a complete lack of understanding of what's
Hmm.
happening here in Ukraine. They'll somebody else will take up the axe. Somebody else will be the
Yeah,
president of Ukraine, and they will
right.
resist Russia
And
with
and
till
this
their
is where
last breath.
that's where the failure of like Trump, Putin, and she world don't get it.
Hmm.
And there's nothing in it for them for people to believe that. There's nothing. It doesn't help Putin or Xi specifically, nor Trump, if people believe, oh, if they go, someone else, this is a cause greater than the man. Therefore, if he gets deposed or something by somebody who's better at it, maybe that's even better. Maybe we find somebody who's better at this than Xi is, better at this than Putin is. That's what
Yeah.
they fear. So the idea is they have to align themselves with this Arthurian godlike status.
Is
It's
it the same?
monarchical more than anything.
Is it this? And again, I will defer to you, but in my rudimentary understanding of China, I don't see quite the cult of personality in China around Xi that I do see in Russia around Putin.
Right.
Is that fair to say? Would
No,
you?
I'll
Would
tell you what,
you?
it used to be.
Is
It used
there
to
a
be
cult of
because
personality around Xi?
yeah, well, he is uh it, he is attempting to craft one. If you listen to like Peter Zayan or other people who talk about China from that aspect, they will talk about the fact that he has created a cult of personality around him. He's got a collective group around him, and he is the Shanghai faction or any of the other groups that would muscle him out, the Navalny's of China, as it were, that he has eliminated those fucking people, and therefore the cult of personality aspect that say Hitler had or that David Koresh or somebody has is not exactly what she has. More people are just afraid he'll fucking kill them. Hitler had about and Stalin both had like
Mm,
I would say a 60-40 fear respect thing. 40% of them respected him, believed in the mythology, and 60% were afraid that if they crossed him they'd end up dead. And Hitler probably had similar numbers. With Xi, it's 80-20. 20% of the people believe in that he knows what he's talking about or have drank the Kool-Aid. 80% are afraid he's going to round them up and fucking kill them. They have these the, the Chinese government just put out a video about capital punishment vans that drive around the country and pick up people who are guilty of treason against the country and all this kind of stuff, and they in less than 90 seconds you go from shackled to fucking dead, and they brag about it, how fast it happens, how well they put it together. I'll show it on the video. I'll find it and show it later on my afternoon show. It's fucking terrifying, and it's followed by this capital punishment van is followed by a cremation van. We heard about the cremation trucks as far as the Russians trying to hide the body count, so that which they just apparently gave up on at one fucking point. China has cremation vans that follow these capital punishment vans, and they just strap you down. There's a fucking bed in there that looks like a cross. They lay on it, pump 4 chemicals into you. You're fucking dead in less than 90 seconds, and then they throw you in a fucking kiln, and that's it. And they were bragging about that fact, like, look how well we clean up crime in China. But it was also told in first person or in second person, where they go, you get strapped down, you get this needle in your arm, you get these chemicals, these with all using the specifically the pronoun of you, and when directing it so that people go, oh fuck me, wait a minute. And you have to understand, in the United States, if you did that, half the country would go, fuck you, me, fuck you.
Yeah.
Like we would, all right.
Yeah.
In China, you can't even be the fourth fucking candidate running for office because "s" and "s" sound very similar. And one means four and one means dead. And so you won't, if people run as the fourth candidate, both it's bad luck because it sounds like death, but also people might not vote for you because they think you fucking died before the election came. And so when they say they mean it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right. And if they say that in America, everybody in, all
Jesus Christ. I mean, Texas would be on fire for good reason.
Yeah. But in Russia, what Russia has done and what Putin has done in Russia is that he has created a situation very akin to the czars,
right?
Where the state is me and I am the state. So it's not the same as in China, from what you're telling me and from what
it's much more
effective. I read about China.
Right.
It's much more effective, and there is kind of a cult of personality surrounding Putin because he was their savior from the collapse of the 90s, and he's going to protect them from the decadent West with all the homosexuals and the people of color who are going to come and invade Russia, and all the white nationalists, will be protected by Putin. So there is a cult of personality surrounded, but this is something that is actually also very it's very typical of Russia within its history. Arguably, the Soviet Union was run slightly different, but on the day where we celebrate the death of Joseph Stalin, go fuck yourself, Stalin.
Right.
That's today. He died some, I don't know how many years ago, but many, many years ago. There was a period in where the Politburo kind of replaced a concept of a czar. But except for a couple of windows, it's always been one man, one individual who is the czar in Russia, and Putin has capitalized on that. So unlike if Putin were to die tomorrow, Russia would go through massive upheaval.
Right.
It would question itself. It would question its future. It would question how to progress, how to go forward. You take him out of the equation, and Russia falls into very severe chaos.
Right.
And he's built it that way. He's done that on purpose. Whereas here in Ukraine, and something they can't wrap their heads around is Zelensky dies, somebody else is going to take his place.
Right.
And
it's like the United States. We have a vice president for a reason, and we have a speaker of the House for a reason. And the whole purpose is that democracy continues on. And I mean, we've been through it with fucking Kennedy and others and Lincoln. And but again, it's about like picking up the axe or picking up the hammer and continuing the fight. And I will say that probably the reason there's a difference in China versus Russia is that post-Soviet Union 91 collapse, the opening created a kind of, I mean, there's still people who apparently there's all this story about people clamoring for the USSR and blah blah blah, like usually the older generation who think the devil is better than the devil you don't.
I've seen people celebrating Stalin's life, not his death today. So that mentality is out there. Yeah,
right. It's a similar situation where there's some people who clamor for the height of Maoist China. There's some of that around, but in the case of like Xi Jinping, they have driven individual thought out of everybody's head and scared the shit out of them about getting too far. If you color outside the lines, you're in deep shit, and you're digging your own grave. And so it's like if you're a Russian in that time or whatever, you can look at Putin and you can kind of believe in the individual. You can believe it, you can kind of deify an individual because you believe in the individual as a thought. What Xi Jinping has tried to do, and especially post Jiang Zemin, what you've seen China go through is this de-individualization process where they try to, the collectivization push that was originally there with Mao and failed miserably. And I mean, they collectively killed 40 million fucking people by starving them to death. Basically they had the Holodomor, but they had it at home, right? Again, what the Russians did to Ukrainian territories, the Chinese did to themselves, and it was almost one to one, note for note. But since Jiang Zemin, there's been this kind of like opening idea, and Xi Jinping has gone back to the Mao system of like shutting that down, that you're not important as an individual. And so it's harder to create a cult of personality around an individual person if you're not even allowed to think the individual matters. It's a weird catch-22 they find themselves in, which, the David Koreshes of the world don't have that problem. The Donald Trumps of this world don't have that problem. So, it's bizarre.
It is bizarre. And I look, I am hopeful. I don't wish any human being to shuffle off this moral coil, but if there's one person, boy, it'd be Putin.
Right.
Because if you do take him out of the equation, things change. Things change big time. And I've been
that's
saying
a trap
this
of
for a
his
long
own
time,
making.
but it is indeed. He is painted himself into a corner. He cannot appoint a successor because that will be a challenge to his dominance, and he cannot disappear, because if he does, then Russia will have a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum, and it'll get crazy. Which I think is going to happen. By the way, you and I have spoken about this many times. That's going to happen. The again, talking about Odessa, the idea that Russians have not wrapped their heads, they have not been confronted with the idea that they have lost that city forever. It's gone. They will never ever own Odessa again. And that has not seeped into their consciousness yet. And I think that in a combination of the realization they've lost Odessa and a potential severing, or at least at the very least putting the land bridge under pressure, collapsing the Kerch Bridge, all of these things, which I think are all of them imminently possible, will make the Russians realize that this has been an utter catastrophe for them, and they are going to lose all the aspirations that they have had in their history of trying to expand into to control the Black Sea, to build a major naval power, to build what they think is the third Rome, as the benefactor of Constantinople when it fell, that Moscow would be the third Rome. That's all gone because
after
Putin,
it was almost the second capital of Mongolia. Which I gotta say, was it the Prime Minister of Mongolia who posted that picture or whatever, like, hey, if Putin likes historical maps, how about this one where
he did.
We had all of Russia.
Funny.
How about we go back to that motherfucker? And while we're going backwards, why don't we just keep going backwards? Jesus. Why don't we just give it all back to the woolly mammoths? I want to show you something real quick in this that I find fascinating.
But just to finish up that thought, is that all of these doomsayers who are like saying, oh, we shouldn't support Ukraine because it's okay. So Ukraine taking back the actual physical territory of the Donetsk or Luhansk, that's going to be a real hard endeavor. But they don't have to do that to win this war. If they can drive home to the Russians that this has been the worst decision of a Russian leader since Nikolai II decided to get involved in the First World War, which ultimately led to the Bolshevik Revolution. I would argue Putin's decision to do this in Ukraine is even worse than Nikolai's, because Nikolai in many ways was driven into it. But Putin made this decision of his own accord, and he will lose Odessa, he will lose Crimea. And once the Russian people are made aware of this, because they're in denial, he will be in a very precarious spot. So they don't have to take back every inch immediately. They don't have to struggle and reconquer territory. If they can just make the Russian population realize that Putin is an idiot who made a suicidal, idiotic, catastrophic decision to do this.
Agreed.
That will end this war with a Ukraine victory, and I think Russian troops will
Yeah.
flee back because they'll have a civil war in their hands back
hmm
in Russia. Anyhow, that's my little diatribe about
Yeah.
how
So
I think Ukraine
this is
really
an
could still
image.
win. Well, will
This
win this
this
war.
image I'm showing over here is this is an aerial satellite of an artillery storage facility in Omsk in Russia, where they kept
Mm-hmm.
their towable artillery. So their artillery cannons that they have sent to the front line. This is beginning of the war or right before. Okay, and this is a little 9-second video, but it's like 4 images. This is from May of 2021, where they took this first little gathering of it, to that.
Yeah.
If you just watch, I'll cycle it again. But they at the beginning of the war, see all those? They take them, they move the final ones over to that empty space. Then those are gone. There's just a few left here, and then they're all gone. That is, I mean, you know that number we always look at about the number of tanks lost, the number of artillery or boats that have been lost in the
Mm-hmm.
fight, and all that kind of stuff. That's what it looks like. And again, half those fucking things, the tires on them were rotten. That was one of the things
Mm-hmm.
that the major and I were talking about on Monday, was that, you've got so many of these things where they were, the oligarch, whoever was in charge of any particular part of the military in that area, was shaving money, and selling off gear. And, why buy new
Yeah.
tires for things that are never going to be moved? I'll just park them there and who gives a fuck? They look good. Just spray paint them black. Yeah, that was one of the biggest problems with the Chinese, rocket force, and why they deposed fucking 12 to 15 heads of the missile command, basically, of China, was because these fuckers were selling off. You don't need 2 washers. Yeah, 1 washer will do. It's not really. I mean, it's a bomb. It's gonna blow up. Why do you need to reinforce it? Oh, because it's got to survive the force of actually being launched. Whatever. And then they'd sell half of the fucking shit, and then it nothing works. Everything collapses. So
Yeah.
that's why
I've seen 2 things of note about kind of in this vein of discussion. Is that, of course, today the Russians are crowing about how potentially they may have taken out one of our HIMARS system. It's one. We've had HIMARS here for
right.
18 months, 12 months, whatever. In all that time, you've been able to and it's still disputed, by the way, by
Yeah.
many, because there are lots of decoys.
They said
over
that
there.
when they first showed up. Remember,
Yeah.
they hit 3 of them in
The
the first
propaganda
week.
machine is
Right, and they never hit a 1. They were
didn't hit
crowing about hitting one in an area that they didn't
And even
exist.
if
Now,
they did, there are several of them here,
Right.
and it's just it's cope. It's cope.
yeah,
And the second thing I saw recently, again along these lines, is a bunch of Russian soldiers put out a video of them finding an M113 armored personnel carrier. And
Mhm.
if you're not familiar with, and no reason why an audience should be aware of military, train spotting kind of hobbyist fixation, an M113 are those boxy armored personnel carriers that we had in Vietnam.
right,
Those were our armored personnel carriers in Vietnam. And we have sent them over here because we've got a huge surplus of them. And the Ukrainians love them
yeah,
because they've got armor, and you can roll around in these things and they will. But the Russians stumble on this one that was apparently left in the retreat from Avdiivka, and they're just mystified by it. Oh, look at this M113, and it's like looking at like I'm not going to go with the analogy of some sort of simian coming upon an iPhone, but it is really kind of like, you guys, that's like impressive to you. Wait till you
Mhm.
see a striker. Wait till
right,
Yeah.
yeah,
There's a lot of talk about them hitting Abrams recently. There's a lot of talk about like all the advantages that and I'm not going to stick my head in the sand. They're making advances. They're taking territory. They're seizing NATO assets, American equipment that's been sent here. It does look like a couple of Abrams have been knocked out. I never thought the Abrams was the right system to be here for a variety of different reasons, but
Well, it's been working
You know,
better than it works almost anywhere else because it is taken on tanks and won. That's the weird part. And so it
yeah.
actually is kind
Well,
of
the Bradley, you
magically
mean?
suited.
You
Or sorry, yeah,
you
the
mean the
Bradley, right?
Bradley or the
Yeah.
Abrams?
The
Yeah,
well, the
because
Abrams is yeah.
I have issues with the Abrams being here because I think they're not. It's just it's a completely different system. It's a it's a
Mhm.
jet propelled
Yeah, sorry, I
tank,
meant
for
Bradley,
God's
right?
sakes. It's
Um,
completely different. But a Bradley, those things, I owe my life. And I've said this many times. I'll say it again. I owe my life to a Bradley. I have been
mhm,
inside a Bradley under very intense fire from Sadrists, insurgents in Sadr City in Iraq. Our Bradley was hit 7 times with RPGs, and I am still here. So those things, we can crow about the Abrams and let the Russians have their little minor victory, having
mhm.
taken out what I think they claim 4 now. Well, so what? It's the Bradley and the M113 and the HIMARS, and it's the Abrams is not. It's not the system for here. It's
Right.
not the tank for this fight. It's just not. But
Mhm.
anyhow, I digress. But it was so funny to watch the Russian soldiers like coming across this M113 and being like, "Ooh, look at this great American, armored personnel carrier we got." And I'm sitting there looking at the thing, going, "Oh yeah,
Yeah,
get to reverse engineering real quick, boys. You might catch
yeah.
up to our 70s or 80s tech."
When your when one of your oil tankers is coming back from China, have them stop off at Vietnam. They can probably buy
Pick
6
up
or
a
8 of
few.
them,
Yeah.
right? That are still like running, supplies into the jungle, in less populated areas
Just
in Vietnam
nuts.
and
Just
Cambodia.
nuts.
Yeah,
The whole thing. The
but
whole
it's
thing is just nuts.
it is indicative of this idea they're going to take every win they can, but it's always short lived. They'll have these the Ukrainians are constantly making
Mhm.
solid ground and holding it, or just depleting the fucking human
Yeah.
reserves of the Russians on the regular, and then occasionally you'll see Solovyev or something like that. Like, finally, we did what we're going to do, and here, oh shit! It lasts about
Yeah.
24 hours, and then they're back at like griping that their army can't fight, their leaders are stupid, no one's doing Putin. They're all doing Putin a disservice, which is really another
Yeah.
fucking weird part of this.
If the
That it's
czar only knew.
yeah, right, yeah. And so
Can't be the czar's fault. It's
yeah,
got to
right.
be the people around him.
Yeah, yeah.
No, no,
There's
the
no way
czar's
he's
fault.
this stupid, because that
Yeah.
would mean we're stupid for following him, and my ego won't
There you
allow.
go.
Yeah,
The- right on the
right.
nose.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's nuts. It's nuts. And it's just so damn frustrating though, because while I still have great optimism for the ultimate result of this war is that Ukraine is going to win.
Hmm.
Ukraine will win by surviving. Russia is not going to take a single city. They can't. They can't
Right.
take it, much less hold it. So they might be able to hold Donbass. They might be able. I don't think they will, but I'm
Hmm.
not going to. I'm not going to live. I'm not putting on rose-colored glasses. Things are not going well.
Hmm.
But once we get, Johnson can't keep this up forever.
Right.
Um,
No,
at one point or another, the bill will be on the floor, and
it will
the
pass.
Congress will vote for Ukrainian aid.
Hmm.
It's going to happen. There are too many Republicans who are vocally saying, "I'm not going to run again," so that they can vote their conscience. There are
Hmm.
enough Republicans who are still kind of like Reagan holdover of the evil empire.
Yeah.
The MAGA faction in Congress is not going to be enough to stop. And also the pro-Palestinian no more aid. If Ukrainian aid is connected to Israeli aid, there are going to be Democrats who are going to, unless
Vote against it.
they can,
Right.
unless the whip can get them into shape. But I
Well,
don't
no,
think there
like
will be. I think there are going to be
Rashida
those that are going
Tlaib
to.
or one of the other ones
Yeah,
might
she's not
might
going to.
vote against it or whatever. But at this point, that what they'll do is they'll vote present. It'll have no material impact on the vote because there will be enough in the House, especially, and it will pass the Senate easily. So that's
Or
not the
even if
votes
they
aren't
vote
my
no,
worry.
there's still going to be. No, the votes
They're
aren't
not
my
going
worry
to
either.
though. They'll vote
Right.
because it'll be attached. So they
I mean,
that's where they get
even if they
present out of.
do,
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not going to change
I
anything,
am.
right?
I'm not going to argue with you about that because I accept that you might be 100% right, but one way or
Yeah.
the other, whether either one of us are right, whether or not one of them does like
Hmm.
performatively go and do a no, so that they know that they will get voted in because their constituency is very pro Palestine, anti Israel. Even with those defections within the Democratic Party, there are going to be enough Republicans who are pro
Right.
Ukraine or
The
anti-Russia
Israel. Well,
who
that's the
will.
thing.
It's
There is
going to.
many.
It's
There's
going
much
to
of a chance.
pass.
There's as much of a chance, if not more, of losing a couple of Republicans to that vote as there are to Democrats, because there in that thing is an aid package for Palestinians, along with military support for Iron Dome
This
missiles
is also
for
true.
Israel. Right.
This is
There's
also true. Yeah.
as much, if not more, funding for Palestinian support in that bill than there was, because quite frankly, Israel doesn't need as much aid. They need to keep refilling the Iron Dome because they're under constant rocket attack, and because of Hezbollah more than anything else. It's about prep materials in case Hezbollah, to keep Hezbollah from attacking, or to fund us sending a ship down there to park off that and pay for it while it's waiting there in case Hezbollah decides to attack the north part of Israel. That's what the real expenditure is for. That probably may or may not actually involve the greater expenditure, which is it's this much money to park it there, it's this much money to fire shit, it's this much money to like full out fire and replace the stuff that's on that ship. Right? These are multiple stages in the cost and how much it'll cost. That's in that bill. As far as the Palestinian, it's food and medicine, and that food and medicine will be used at some point. There may be some medications or something in there that might be time sensitive in terms of or have a goodbye date, but most of it is going to be stuff that's a keeper. The meals ready to eat, grain, any of
Hmm.
that other stuff will either be eaten and consumed
Hmm.
immediately or be able to be stored for the near future, or we'll create a backup for it. So that part lasts a little bit longer, and it's
But
direct
the
funding. It's
60
yeah,
but the 60 billion that would come here, not
yes,
only from the monetary assistance
hmm,
that it would take and the military assistance it would take, it would reinforce that we stand in solidarity with Ukraine. And
hmm,
right now,
yes,
that's going to be a huge thing, because I got to tell you how right now, as much as my Ukrainian contacts, friends, colleagues, associates, all the rest of it,
yep,
they understand that we have been under attack by Russia for a very long time, that our
yep,
body politic has been attacked, not just meddled with, not just
yeah,
interfered with, attacked.
yep,
This has been since 2016, and arguably before, but certainly since 2016 and the election of Trump.
hmm,
We have been under attack. It is the reason why they didn't use their civilian intelligence organization, the
hmm,
SVR, that
right,
is their foreign intelligence, basically their CIA. They use their military intelligence, the equivalent of our covert or our DOD, military intelligence guys. There are covert operations.
hmm,
We have been and are currently under attack by Russian psyops, intelligence operations, and there's a very real body count to. Again, we've talked about this numerous times, but we are actually under attack. So they understand that, the Ukrainians,
hmm,
but it doesn't make it any easier when they're digging children out of the rubble and they're like,
right,
"You could have helped us stop this,
hmm,
U.S." So Johnson, again, I'll just make my plea once again as we're kind of heading towards the final quarter here. Um, call your elected
yeah. I called him
representatives
during the opening
every single damn
of the
day.
show this morning, for the record,
Good.
and people heard me do
Yeah.
it. I think over it, and I think the more I do it on the air, it's almost like some people like recognize it's not as difficult as you might think
It's
it
very
is, or whatever.
easy.
Yeah, it's very easy, but it's one of those things. If you're not used to doing it, or it's outside your normal thing, it seems like it would have. There must be one other step I'm missing. There isn't. You could just call and speak your piece. I would
Mm.
argue be
And if
be polite and
you're
succinct,
anywhere, yep, be
be
polite, be
direct,
succinct. Yep.
right? Don't insult the person who's answering the phone. It's not their fucking fault. As a
Not
matter of
their
fact,
fault.
they're assigned by by the Capitol, like they're employees
Yeah.
and interns and that
Inter-
kind of stuff,
intern-
but they're not
yeah.
ideological, catamarans following alongside Mike Johnson. They are simply there as part of the gig. So be nice to them. and respectful, and present to them something, your moral message, in a way that you would want it conveyed heartfelt to the person, as opposed to
Be
angrily or whatever.
sincere.
Yep.
Yeah.
Be sincere
Yeah,
about
no,
it. Yeah.
absolutely. We gotta put pressure on these people to bring it to the
Hmm.
floor. It has every day. Ukrainians are dying here every
Hmm.
single day, and it's just it's it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's really heartbreaking. So, I hope that people will do that.
Hmm.
There's that. Oh, and also, if you're in the Beltway, or if you can get to DC, there is a daily protest, or an assembly. I don't know what to call it.
Hmm.
Urging Congress to do something about this at the corner of Independence and New Jersey, I believe it is. In DC, if you can make it to DC, go and stand with those people.
Hmm.
Because it does. That's a great visual way of showing your support for Ukraine. So if you're anywhere near it, go and do it.
Hmm.
Not hard to do.
Um, and
There was one
and
other thing I wanted to
yeah, go ahead.
quickly talk. Oh, no, if you want to bring something else, you want to follow on that vein.
I
I
do
got to.
want to. Part of this is also
Yeah, go
about
for it.
like the protection and the superiority of Russia's economy and all that kind of stuff. There's been a revision of that talking point bullshit about that the sanctions didn't work or whatever. This is from Gistfest, like this particular story, but it's based on the reports from the Russian economic minister or whatever. Their official monetary and financial institutions forum, the OMFIF, warns that its economic trajectory might see a decline soon, is what they're calling it. Which means, if they're saying it's bad, if it's going to be bad, it's already bad. If they're saying it's already bad, it's terrible. That's usually how it works in Russia. While Russia is usually
Hmm.
resilient in the face of geopolitical challenges and Western sanctions, deterioration might be in view for the country. This could also cause a decline in its global influence. This is the trade restrictions they're going through. The fact that Turkey just shut down an oil terminal with Russia, which was their
Hmm.
final one,
Yep.
I think, and
Yep.
is a huge deal. And they're not talking about it anymore. Like Putin will come out and say everything's fine, and they're kind of American compatriots and Western allies. These individuals like the Scott Ritters of the world and other convicted pedophiles that they have on a short leash will come out and say that the sanctions didn't work, and yeah, the tankies exactly will come out and say it's not working. Meanwhile, their own numbers are like, we're in deep shit. This is bad. They've they've stopped exporting refined gas out of the country because they have to keep the cost of it cheap inside the country. Otherwise, everything else will seize up, which is an enormous fucking thing. Secondarily, there's a similar thing going on in China in parallel. And I don't know if people saw this, but let me see if I can scroll this down. But China has no, and I mentioned this in the top of the show, but it wasn't when you were here. That the Chinese premier Li Qiang, it is tradition that after the party Congress, they had this like the after the conference, the premier comes out and has this like press gaggle with foreign press. Usually, the weird, it's
Yes.
one of the few situations where he actually takes more questions from the foreign press than he does from the local, from national press. It's a very
Hmm.
distinct turn that they do. It's not usually like that, but in this particular instance, it is. And there's a lot of question about why Xi Jinping canceled this. Again, it might be one of these things where he's eliminating all the seconds in charge so that it just you go right from first to third and nobody has a shot at the ring, which is also a Putin-esque thing that he's kind of taken on. But it's also because they don't have any fucking good news at all. But it's huge that this is the first time in 30 years they haven't done this. And according to them, this is how it's going to be going forward. They're not going to do this. And which means they don't
Mm.
expect it to get better ever. That they're either going to, seal the country up and just start ejecting people, which is what seems to be the plan, or they just know it's going to suck for a decade because they're going to have to claw out of this hole they dug, and so they don't want to talk about it, and so they're
Mm.
not going to. And so Li Qiang is not speaking. He's very happy, by the way, I think, to not have to do this because that's how you become a scapegoat for Xi Jinping, is become the mouthpiece for any of these fucking policies. So a lot of these guys are like, "Oh, we're not going to have that. Okay, cool. I'll see you later." You know, and he
Yeah.
bugged the fuck out. Chris is saying, Hal and Phil, will China return to a version of Maoism? That seems to be what Xi Jinping is attempting, but only in the sort of deification of Mao part, but not the actual functioning system of communism. He was a princeling, but he was like the idea that there's like Xi Jinping thought or any of that bullshit is nonsense. And he's an
The
idiot.
red book's coming out again. Yeah,
Well,
and he's an idiot.
He's fucking stupid. Like the three red lines policy that he had to deal with the debt around real estate. The idea that he thought the best thing we could do, this car's going in the wrong direction, is to throw it into reverse while we're going 100 miles an hour. Not slow it down to a reasonable speed and then do a slow and controlled U-turn. He would just like fucking yank the parking brake and throw it in reverse at the same time and go, I don't know, not my fucking fault. I didn't hit the gas in the first place. That seems to be what he's doing. Honest to God. There's no other explanation. It's fucking stupid. It's a terrible. I'll show you. Hold on. Is this the Vank? Okay, that's the GitHub guys. Okay, this is also. I was looking into. I was going to talk about this as well, but the China has this APT 41, which is called Double Dragon. It's one of their hacker groups that is more than likely, and if they're not directly involved or directly responsible for, they're involved in some of the recent DDoS attacks, both on Facebook, on AT&T, and like T-Mobile coverage in the United States. They're basically they're trying to use their malware, checking to see if it's still there. And the U.S. government, especially the Biden team, has been since 2021 rooting this shit out. They've been really on top of this since he came in because they're really afraid that that's what's going to happen. That there won't be the attack on him won't be COVID and another COVID like Trump thinks. It'll be a cyber attack that's massive and looks accidental or because of low quality. That would be what they're selling, right? And so we've been rooting that shit out. And a lot of this, this is an ongoing thing with the, with the administration playing cat and mouse with the Chinese. And the Chinese are basically like testing their malware to see if it works. They're like, oh shit, okay, that one works again. But by doing that, you can find them. You can go, oh fuck, that was an area we didn't know they had something, and then it's gone. Right? You can only use it once. You can only pull that cord once. It's a single parachute, right?
But we all should be very concerned not only about Chinese, information warfare and hackers, but obviously Russians as well. I mean, I spoke to a guy from Homeland Security,
right,
nearly a decade ago, who said, yeah, no, they're deep inside our systems, and obviously we're trying to counteract it, but I agree with you. We should be deeply concerned. And then there's just one more thing I wanted to talk about, because I've seen a lot of discussion of this as well, is the State of the Union. And I'm sorry, I can't be polite about this. It's disturbing the level of ignorance or the deep lack of understanding that both Navalnaya and Zelenskaya, the wife of Navalny and the wife of Zelensky, were both invited to the State of the Union, and they were planning to sit next to one another.
And Zelenskaya said no. She refused. Right.
Yeah, just not. I'm sorry. That was not smart. That was not thoughtful.
An enemy of my enemy is my friend attempt in that regard. And it doesn't work that way right now, especially.
No, it doesn't work that way. And our State Department should have been better with that. I'm sorry, but I am going to be critical of both the White House and the State Department on that one. Not a very cursory understanding of an ally that we are fighting a war in conjunction with would have known at the very least don't sit them next to one another, but probably don't invite both of them. But I get why it was done, and I understand the motivation, and
the attempt at doing it, and I do think there's an interesting bridge that you can speak to, even if it fails in that regard. Like, we tried to bring both of them here because they could. One thing they do share is the fact that Putin's trying to wipe both of them out.
They both suffered under Putin.
Right.
They both suffered under Putin. And I get that. I honestly do, but my criticism still stands.
Sure.
That was not thoughtful. That was not considered. That was not I mean, I have my criticism of Navalny, and I've spoken about it openly and quite publicly. I was not a particular fan. I recognized his capabilities, his what he was potentially bringing to Russia, and I could overlook some things about Navalny,
Right.
but other things, being somebody here in Ukraine, the dude was still a Russian imperialist.
Hmm.
He was. And there's a lot of opportunism that happened in Navalny camp. I know critics of Zelensky's camp say that there's opportunism there. I disagree firmly, but you know, it's just having those two women there at the same time, sitting, next. It just wasn't going to happen,
Hmm.
and so I, it's unfortunate. It was a mistake. Let's move on. But
Right.
do
Yeah, I
better.
don't
Do
think
better, guys. You can do
I
better. You can
I
do
will
better.
say that I don't think the average American is aware of that kind of like the
No,
kind
no,
of
no, 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 no,
diplomatic
no, no, no,
embarrassment
no,
level
no,
of
no.
it. So it'll kind of
I
come and
mean,
go as a storyline.
they might see the like how dare Zelensky, that she
Turn it down and
Ludmila,
yeah,
turn it
deny
down,
sitting
how
there with her. Right.
insulting, and they kind of roll with that. But it's a flash in the pan. It'll come and go. But
Well, they don't know how
what
to defend
concerns
that
me,
argument, so they'll just kind of drop it.
yeah,
A lot of people won't chase that down
yeah,
if they can't. If they don't have a
no, it's too
second sentence in
complex.
there, yeah, if you don't have another
Yeah,
backup sentence to explain your position in your holster, a lot of people will just kind of drop it in that regard. I think that's where it's actually going from.
yeah.
The
It's
oh,
unfortunate. It shouldn't have
Chris,
happened. It was a mistake. But
yeah,
you know,
real quick, Chris in our
let's move on.
chat room had a question for you, which was like, how many people have
Sure,
left Russia and how many are gonna come back? And it's a difficult
Russia.
question to answer. Yeah, because a lot
It
of
is a
people have,
difficult question to
yeah,
answer. Because um, my response to that is I believe it was in the low millions, maybe the high hundreds of thousands.
hmm,
It's not a significant number, but what it was the intelligentsia. It
yeah,
was the smart, capable, international, young, predominantly,
hmm.
but people
Anybody
who
who
already had
believes they have a
international character.
future, fucked
Right.
off.
Got the hell out of there. And so
Hmm.
it's not the number itself that matters, but it was the motivation and what it's going to take away from Russia. Will they return? No, no, I
Yeah,
don't think so. I think once you are, if and I know the Russian diaspora. I say I know the I know many who are in the Russian diaspora from even before 2016. I mean, like going back to the aughts. Like I got lots of friends who are Russian, but had the second they got the chance to get the hell out of Russia, they did, and they
right.
never looked back. Because
Yeah,
once you get out of Russia and you see, I mean, unless you're Margarita Simonian, who gets, whose daddy is going to give you an entire corporate media network, and you're unhappy because you're in, where was she, Ohio or something like that, and she just couldn't
right.
understand America,
Yeah,
um, and so she, had motivation to come back. Aside from that, I mean, there are Russian, patriots who might try and straddle both
right.
worlds, but I think most of the people who have left are not coming back. It's the exodus after the Bolshevik Revolution. It's the Civil War. It's the
Look at the talk
White
of
Army
like
guys.
Chinese people who have they're talking about how many Chinese people are coming across the southern border in the United States are paying $30,000 US to sneak into the country and live here. Now, is there a chance the CCP is sending a few people over here to do some gnarly stuff to make the U.S. population turn against Chinese immigrants and stuff, so that it drives them back home so they can reclaim them? Abso-fucking-lutely. As a matter of fact, Russia
Hmm.
has every reason to send people to other countries, Russians themselves, to pretend to be seeking some sort of asylum or pretend to be getting out of there and then cause some trouble so that the Poles or the Germans or wherever go, these fucking Russians came over here and started all this trouble. And so he asked for asylum and then he
Yeah, I
murdered
mean, look
somebody.
at Poland.
Right. Yeah.
Look at Poland
That
right now. How
right.
infiltrated they are with Russians.
Yeah. Well, the same thing is true of like, I guess there's a potential for that with China as well. But a lot of people are just bugging the fuck out. They're just getting away
Yeah.
because they've got no hope where they are. So I've showed people this before, whatever. But we talked about this when I was on the sort of beat about the Chinese economy collapsing when nobody believed me. at the beginning. But this is Evergrande is the largest property developer in the world. Its debt is twice the national budget of Russia. The entire budget of Russia for everything that they owe double that in debt. Just say it for the record. Evergrande does. It's being liquidated right now. A judge in Hong Kong found that it is insolvent, and it's the largest, the largest real estate company in the history of the earth is being liquidated right now in China. Now, the second biggest in the world is Country Garden, the second biggest real estate firm in the world is being liquidated in China right now. The amount of debt that they owe, again, is, I mean, it's Canada's GDP, and it doesn't fucking exist. Like, check this out. So there's a third one, though. The third biggest one in the country, which was, in some cases with these certain deals, a subsidiary of both of these companies. They would take on certain projects and work together with them, called Vanke. Vanke is the third one. Developer China Vanke assures it can repay $630 million bond amid liquidity worries. These are foreign investors who put their money into this third-tier fucking company that relied on those other two companies for its contracts to make buildings that no one's ever going to live in, for and apartments that people like paid for before they ever saw them, that are never going to be fucking finished. And by the way, these three companies, the size of them is larger than any of the companies that collapsed during the 2008 crisis that triggered the whole fucking thing. The interesting thing is, what's the difference here? These aren't going to trigger a cascade of collapse in the rest of the world. Some asshole super rich investors are going to lose their fucking shirt like a bunch of dumbasses, and that might have some secondary effects because of other investments where they got to pull money out of it to put it in there. But there's somebody waiting in the wings that would rather buy that stock at a lower level, so they don't give a fuck. It won't have the impact that, say, 2008 did anywhere but inside China.
Except inside China. Yeah. Well, I call me a foolish optimist, but I will stick with my optimism. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Autocracies are at their high watermark.
Yep.
And if we can keep our own autocrat from getting back into the Oval, which I am confident we will do,
right,
then I think we are going to see these autocracies in real serious trouble, because
there was an article. There was an article today in I forget where it was, like in the AP or something like that, where I first saw it or whatever. But it's basically like after the Party Congress, Xi Jinping's own economic advisors don't know what he's talking about. Was essentially the take, and they don't know what the fuck he keeps saying. Certain plans like managed growth within a China-centric economy and where they're going to build their own consumer class, and everybody's like, with what?
Yeah, where?
Where? Where's this coming from? Yeah, you're going to cut us off from the entire world, and we're going to grow a world-sized economy inside? Yeah. Good Lord. So I gotta
crazy delusion.
And this is who Trump thinks is top of their game. This is who Trump thinks sharp as a tack. So, anyways, I want to thank you for coming on. We went over.
All right,
I want
buddy.
to remind everybody to check out your upcoming podcast. Go to
it's coming. Yeah. We're getting closer every day. We're working on the studio.
Great.
We should have the studio up and completed within another week. We had a little bit of a setback today, but I'm still moving forward. And then I hope to get the first pod out middle to late March.
Excellent.
So depending on how quickly we can finish up this.
That's great. And are they going to be posted on your YouTube page and
I'll
then
put it
like
on the
Spotify
YouTube
and stuff?
page, and I'll put it on the audio version will be, on all the places where you get podcasts, and we'll see how it shakes down. But first things first, let me get the studio completely kitted out with as much as I can
So you're
possibly
doing it
get,
right.
you know.
I built this shit on the fly. You know, like I'm literally screwing the wheels on the car as it's headed down the raceway.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Like,
yeah.
no.
I just
I can do a
yeah.
show. Yeah. Meanwhile,
Well,
you know,
hopefully and it'll change. You know, it won't be the same from the first podcast until
yeah,
we kind of get things
of course,
regular. But I did want to hit the ground running with a nice studio that was,
with baseline
you know,
function. I get it. I get it.
well, you know, all the rest of it. All right, so I'll
Anyway,
talk to you on Saturday. All
yes,
the best,
absolutely.
everybody. Support Ukraine. Call your elected officials if you can. Get to the protest or the assembly
That's right.
in DC. Please do. But just know that, you know, it's really important that we support Ukraine, and
Absolutely.
it's something we should all be involved with, because it'll change the face of Europe, and by by extension, the face of the planet. So
Agreed.
keep the
Okay.
faith. Keep the
Yep.
faith. We'll get there. We just
All
have
right.
we
Thanks,
can't
brother. Thanks for coming on.
can't
We'll see you on Saturday.
lose
Be
steam.
safe.
All right,
Okay.
buddy. Talk to you on
All right.
Saturday.
Cheers.
All right,
Okay.
bye-bye.
Bye. There he goes, ladies and gentlemen. Philip Hittner. Give it up for him. Don't forget to go to his YouTube page and subscribe if you can. If you could bring yourself to do that, that would be lovely. I'd appreciate it. And of course, you know, liking and subscribing to this channel, also positive, a net positive, I would say. Yes, possibly. And I have to show you this fucking where is it? I have to show you this Chinese article. Let me tell you, conference. Oy. Where is it? I had this article up before about yeah, here it is. This I just fucking love the title of this one. Steering China's economy. Xi's economic plans are even leaving his own economists baffled. Not exactly, you know, this, and by the way, this is the guy that Trump says is sharp as a tack, top of his game, controls a country of 1.4 billion people with an iron fist. Right? And meanwhile, everybody's like everybody around Xi Jinping when he talks is like, could you, I don't know, maybe repeat that, or, because I did I not, you guys, anybody getting what the fuck this dude is on about? I don't understand. Yeah, you mean Winnie the Pooh? Yeah. I just fucking love this. Everyone within the People's Republic has noticed that China's economy is reeling, except Xi Jinping, apparently. How will you have your shows when you're touring with SL? Yes, I will. Hence the rig, and thank you, patrons, for helping me build out. We had I think, a successful test of the system I'm going to be using, because at least sonically and video-wise, we were able to get a really good signal and clarity, and I didn't have any kind of, it wasn't choppy, it didn't freeze, it wasn't jagged and all that kind of stuff. That was because of you guys, and I greatly appreciate it. Thank you, patrons, for helping us with that. And so that's going to be the system that I roll with, and then I'm going to improve on that system. Yeah, the last Flapper show was great. Thank you. It won't be the last one, though, technically, because I got another one coming up at the end of the month. I do those for all the patrons. It's the only thing I technically is kind of behind a paywall, is that if you're a Patreon subscriber and you're in town and I'm doing a stand-up show on my own, or there's a Nerd Halen show, I can put you on my guest list, and you can be my guest at the show. And so far as the Flapper shows, if you're in the Burbank area, when I do one of those shows, you're welcome as a patron to come and bring a guest. And I also live stream it to our Patreon page for those folks, or whatever. But since the Arthur, oh yeah, I like Arthur Ray. Yeah, he's one of the guys who's pro-Ukrainian. I'd love to have him on as a guest, Andre. I don't know if you know who he is, but we could reach out to him. That'd be sweet. I dig that dude. I like him. He's funny, and he's an excellent musician, for the record. Yeah. So, Barbecue Billionaires? Well, that's yeah. Texas Paul loved your show. Oh, thanks. Yes, we got to talk afterwards. It was lovely. When am I coming to Chicago? That's a good question, Tom. The Chicago date was on the thing, and I saw the thing. Hold on. I have it here. August 17th, Vic Theater. August 17th, Vic Theater, Chicago. Tom and his lovely wife will be my guest at the show, period, along with Johnny Million and Mrs. Johnny Million, and at least one other ne'er-do-well that I went to high school with. I'm going to try, and for those of you who don't know, by the way, and I'll leave you with this, and then I got to fuck off because I'll do a show this afternoon. Send me info. I'll try and get him on. Okay, we'll do. Most people know that, Johnny Million and I know each other from school. He's on my radio show. My buddy Tom, who's been in the chat room a few times, we went to school together. We played music together and recorded music together, and it's fucking great. But a lot of people don't know maybe that I went to Second City. I was in Second City, and I was in the teen troupe there. And along with me in the teen troupe was Francis Collier from Frangela. As an absolute random, hold on, this might be my, hold on, pardon, I have to take this phone call because I'm over time. Give me. Sorry, I have somebody at the door and I gotta go. And the show's long anyways. I'll tell you the rest of it later. Anyways, Francis and I went to Second City together. That's all you need to know. And it's wonderful to be able to do a show with her, not just on the Sexy Liberal tour. And it makes me smile every time I stand next to Francis on stage. I adore her, and I like Angela too, and I love John, and I love Steph. But it's super wonderful that I get to, spend time with her. And then it's just nice. And the idea that we would perform at the Vic is going to be fantastic. So there you go. Chicago, see you soon, all that stuff. And I got to, okay, where's the clicking goodbye button? There it is.